My name's Barbara Vest. I'm a member of the Durham Energy Institute Advisory Board, and I'm here to welcome you to the 7th seminar in our Durham Heat Hub event, and it's a joint project between Durham Energy Institute and Durham County Council to translate heat research into practical application for the benefit of the community. That's got to be good. Exploring the challenges of decarbonising our heat. This session is going to focus on training and skills and the support that will be required to meet the green transition. This is really a hot topic, so I'm very pleased that we're tackling it just now. We are also supported by the new EPSRC research network on decarbonisation of heating and cooling. So thank you very much for that support. So this seminar is going to explore the gap and challenges of meeting the skills and training requirements for net zero. The government's recent Skills for Jobs white paper, helpful, aims to deliver a lifetime skills guarantee and sets out a blueprint for a post-16 education system that will ensure everyone, no matter where they live or their background, can gain the skills they need to progress in work at any stage of their lives. With the government committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050, the UK must deploy a range of technologies, including, for example, carbon capture and hydrogen, to decarbonise the industrial and energy sectors. Existing energy sectors will be encouraged to radically change their practices and technologies, and old skills, that's me out the window, will be replaced with greener approaches, requiring an understanding of new technologies, service options, and digital approaches. The heating and cooling industry will play a critical role in helping UK PLC achieve our climate change targets. That all sounds absolutely fabulous, but actually, are we ready for this? And do we need to prepare to prosper from the green revolution? Are these reforms bold enough? And how will they support the UK aims of net zero 2050? Well, don't worry, we've got 6 smashing speakers here from across the heat and energy sector to explore the current challenges in meeting the skills and training needs for net zero and provide their views on what else is needed to ensure a green, fair and equitable transition for everyone. This session is being recorded and it'll be uploaded onto the Durham Heat Hub website within the next few weeks. And key findings will be published in a brief report and circulated to all attendees and relevant parties. I'm really, really pleased that you've chosen to join us this morning, and I hope that everything you hear will help you and be of interest. Without further ado, we'll have our first speaker. I'm going over to Kim Smith from the North East LEP. Kim is a College Hub Facilitator for the North East LEP, and the College Hub facilitates discussions to bring the supply side together with employers and includes opportunities for knowledge transfer and industrial interchange to support teaching and working development. So that all sounds very relevant to what we're going to discuss today. Kim, over to you.
Thanks very much, Barbara. Can everybody hear me all right? I'm just going to look for a thumbs up from Barbara there.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, so thank you. I am just going to put a bit of a health warning up immediately, and that is I am not coming at this agenda as an energy heat hub expert. Okay, I'm coming at this as an FE and skills sector lead. So as Barbara has very clearly said, my role within the North East LEP is to take the lead on all things further education and post-16. So that can be within education and skills delivered by colleges, and that can either be academic, but also the technical education angle. So what I want to do today is to provide you with who's involved, what we do, and why we're here. I want to share with you some of the headlines from the Skills White Paper. So this was the Skills for Job paper, which we've been waiting for a little while, and it was launched in January this year. and I really want to focus on the strategic announcements and also give you a whistle-stop tour in terms of what's already in train in the region. Normally with the skills white paper, we can get really excited about all of the newness associated with it. But what's interesting with this skills white paper is a number of the reforms are already live. What I've then done is I've extracted from the skills white paper some key themes for you as a heat hub to consider. And we haven't got the time today to answer each of those, but the slides will be shared and maybe that will be of use for future discussions. And then I want to finish off with sharing with you how the North East NELEP College Hub can support the work you're doing. So the North East NELEP College Hub, we're the only dedicated college hub in the country. You will hear that there's lots of other careers hubs out nationally, and they may well comprise of schools and colleges. But within the NELEP, we've got 5 career hubs. We've got one which is focused upon primary education, which actually provides us with a network of 80 schools. We've got 2 secondary school career hubs, which provide us with access to 90 schools. We have a SEND college hub, and we also have the college hub I'm here to talk to you about. What that means is within the North East NELEP's approach to career hubs, we work very intensively with schools and colleges involved in those hubs. We have very, very regular contact with them. So we've got some great networks you can tap into. If the schools aren't in a hub, that does not mean to say that we don't work with them. What it means is that we have opportunities to share information with them and we will respond to their inquiries. But if you've signed up to be a hub member, you are part of our very, very close family, if you like. So within the college hub within the NELEP area comprises of the 9 general further education colleges and the 2 largest sixth form centres. And I've listed those there. What's really brilliant about our college hub is that we engage at both an operational and a strategic level. We take a whole college approach to careers. So this might be quite different to maybe your experiences. It's certainly different to my experiences when I was at school and college in the Roman times, and with what careers advisors look like to me. I would get my careers advice probably from an already very busy teacher who was one of those willing and able individuals who just happened to have careers tagged on to their day job. And I probably didn't get a fully rounded understanding of what all of my progression options were. That's very, very different now, given the statutory duty which is placed upon schools and colleges to provide careers. So with that in mind, in the North East, we see careers as not just sitting with the careers advisor who might be sat in the cupboard under the stairs. We see careers as very much being the responsibility of everybody within a college. So colleges will have strategic career plans, which come right down from governing bodies who have a careers link, straight through the principalship teams, into the student services, into the teaching teams, who I'm guessing are going to be pretty important to you in addressing your skills agenda and translating your ambitions into a reality. Also with your back office support through your marketing and communications and all of those business development units. So careers is big business nowadays. And this slide gives you a flavour as to also just how far reaching the colleges involved in our hub are. So they're not just Northeastern. We've also got the largest apprenticeship provider, one of those largest nationally, together with one of the colleges, two of the colleges who are part of the largest national college group. So we have a huge reach here. Brief overview of the college hub. We are, as I said, we have a very much a whole college approach, and thinking about careers advice and, as I mentioned, your own experiences, the approach to careers has changed quite exponentially over the last 5 to 6 years, in that we have a duty to ensure that we apply the good quality career benchmarks. And some of you may also have heard these as being referred to as the Gatsby career benchmarks. Now, the background to these benchmarks is that every young person needs high quality career guidance in order to make informed decisions about their future. So good careers guidance is a necessity for technical education reforms, and it's a vehicle for social justice. So those young people without social capital or home support suffer most from poor career guidance. Yet despite its importance, careers guidance in English schools has often been criticised for being inadequate and a little bit patchy. Against this background, the Gatsby Foundation commissioned Sir John Holman, who's an emeritus professor of chemistry at the University of York. He's a senior education advisor and a former head teacher, and he was tasked with setting out what careers guidance in England should look like by international standards. So after 6 international visits, analysis of good practice in English schools and colleges, and a comprehensive review of existing literature, John wrote the Good Career Guidance Report, and it's that report which highlights these 8 benchmarks that schools and colleges should now statutorily be using as a framework for their careers provision. The North East NELEP was a trailblazer in piloting these benchmarks in schools, and following our pilot, that's what became the statutory duty and the good careers policy. In the College Hub, because we're the only College Hub nationally, we've been tasked with reviewing how fit for purpose these are for the post-16 setting. So with the rollout of the new National Skills White Paper, which will transform technical education, and an industrial strategy that puts technicians at the heart of the country's economic success, there's never been a better time to both pursue a technical career, but also ensure that you're informed about all of the different career pathways and progression routes out there. So these are what the 8 benchmarks look like. And the areas in red are the ones which I think will probably be of interest to you. Within a college and within a school, there is a statutory duty for you to evidence that you are actually publishing and providing a stable careers programme. And this programme has to talk to you as a learner, it has to talk to parents and carers, and it has to talk to employers. So you've got a really great opportunity here to ensure that this is reflecting what your sector and industry needs. It's about ensuring that learners and teachers have got a really good understanding about labour market information and about all of the exciting growth areas within your industry. It's about addressing the needs of each pupil. So this is about ensuring that no young person is lost in transition. It's about linking curriculum learning to careers. So this goes back to what I said before. It's not about seeing careers as a one-off quick 30-minute discussion, which you might have within your time at secondary school. It's about it being constantly woven through your learning. It's about very real and meaningful encounters with employers and employees. Please let's move away from speed dating career fairs. They're not impactful. Okay, so this is really about making sure that we've got some meaningful interactions. Experiences of the workplaces. COVID has provided us with a challenge in that we've had to respond to this with lots of virtual work experience placements, which have proved really effective. It's about ensuring young people, whether they're at a school or a school with a sixth form, are getting information about apprenticeships, about technical level qualifications, about higher technical qualifications, as well as about hearing about routes into traditional degrees at universities. And it's also about ensuring that there is some personal guidance, opportunities available should young people really be struggling about what they should be doing next. So with that in mind, very timely to have been invited to meet with you because of the release of the Skills for Jobs white paper. And as Barbara mentioned in her introduction, the focus is very much around strengthening the links between employers and further education providers. Very much about ensuring that employers are at the heart of defining local skill needs and that there's opportunities for them to work with colleges in order to put employers at the heart of post-16 skills, provide the advanced technical and higher technical skills which we need. A key element of it is around a flexible lifetime skills guarantee, which is around providing funding for learners. It's about ensuring that providers, so FE colleges, are responsive and that they're looking at their accountability, their governance structures, and also about supporting outstanding teaching. So I aim to touch on each of those bullet points throughout this presentation. So the skills for job reforms. This is what's in train. There are a lot of reforms which are already live, but those which are most relevant to this discussion are around technical education. So technical qualifications, the rollout of those actually started in September 2020. They're being introduced in a phased approach nationally. We've got 8 providers in the Northeast, 5 are colleges, 3 are schools. There were 4 institutions who were due to start rolling out technical level qualifications this September, but 2 deferred because of COVID. The big thing about T-levels is the focus upon industrial placements. Technical level qualifications cannot be delivered without the engagement and involvement of employers, both in the design and the development of the qualification, but also in the delivery. So the first year traditionally of a T-level qualification is whereby a young person will be going into their school and college, and they will predominantly be experiencing classroom-based learning in order to ensure they've got all of that core knowledge and understanding. It's within the second year whereby an industrial placement is required. And this is at a level 3. So this is a higher level qualification than what some of you familiar with BTEC vocational qualifications may know about. Apprenticeship and trainee flexibilities were announced last year. We've played a key role in the LEP because we actually have a Northeast LEP apprenticeship group, whereby we've been shouting since last March about the need for incentives and flexibilities to be made available in order to ensure that apprenticeships don't stop because of COVID. Alignment across employer standards, this is what's really exciting, and it links into approved higher technical qualifications. What this now means is that if you were doing any form of technical education, be that a T-level, a traineeship, an apprenticeship, or a higher national qualification, you will all be on the same employer standard routeway. So previously, if you wanted to swap from being on a T-level to maybe being recruited as an apprentice, that might mean that you're seen as an incompleter and you'd have to, a bit like snakes and ladders, go back to go. Not now. The employer standards are really crucial, because what that highlights is if you're on a technical education pathway, you can continue with that particular course of learning, but it might just be that the way in which it's delivered is different. But you can start off as a T-level student on an industrial placement, therefore impress your employer who says, do you know what, I'd like to take you on as an apprenticeship. That's no longer a negative. That's a positive, because it's enabling the learner to continue with their learning pathway. The approved higher technical qualifications are coming out in 2023, and they're actually starting with digital. Unlike the T-level, these are not necessarily going to be new. This is about ensuring that existing level 4, level 5, so your HNCs, your HNDs and your foundation degrees are actually fit for purpose and are directly related to what employers are looking for. So this might just be a re-accrediting of what exists, but they're really going to need to have strong evidence from employer networks to say that they are still needed. And the Institute of Technologies is announced in the white paper, but we were in the first wave as a region, and we've got an Institute of Technology which was launched last year, and this comprises of New College Durham as the lead, with 3 other partners from the FE sector. And their focus is around higher level provision, so level 4 and level 5, and post-18 and STEM provision, so the science, technology, engineering and manufacturing areas. So technical education reforms really are the bulk of this white paper, but they're not new, they're already live. College capital funding is something which you might be interested in. This is all about modernising the college estate in line with the 21st century training facilities to reflect what that changing world of work is looking like. Skill boot camps exist, but they've been extended to the Northeast this year. Again, these might be something you want to consider, because they're very much about free, flexible courses, just 12 to 16 weeks, but they're very sector specific. And this could be a really nice route way for industries who are looking to, if you like, retrain or have some add-on skills for people to be able to maybe re-enter a workforce. Lifetime skills guarantee has been around, and this is around funding. We're a bit disappointed about this particular pledge because this is about saying that now government will fund all first level 3 qualifications. And the reason we're a little bit disappointed about this is because of COVID. We know that people are going to find themselves already holding a level 3, but they're actually going to need to retrain. And evidence has shown that people don't take out a loan for a level 3 qualification. So we are exploring whether or not there's opportunities in order to actually maybe allow for some second level 3s to be funded where learners can demonstrate that this is for a career change. So what's new? This is really exciting. £65 million strategic development fund, which is about establishing college business centres within an FE college. Now, this can actually be about a sector and industry-led area as well. So this could be something you might want to think about the more we get information on these college business centres. There's new legislation in order to give employer bodies leadership of new skills improvement plans. So this is really around building upon what we do within the skills advisory panels within the NELEPs, and this is about understanding at an economic geography level exactly what skills are already being offered and where are the gaps. And so this is very much about bringing employers and training providers around the table in order to ensure that there is a collaborative approach to the skills offer. This very much leads into employers having a central role in designing almost all technical courses by 2030. So you noticed before I talked about that alignment of employer standards. This is where it's really important. So we can't, employers now and employer representative bodies really do need to get engaging with colleges much more so if we're going to ensure that the supply actually is going to meet what the employer needs are going forward. There's a lifelong learning entitlement for level 4s. This is brilliant news. What this now means is that if you want to continue in your level 4 provision, there is now a loan available for you, regardless of whether or not you're studying at a university or at a college. So it's really recognising the value of technical education. And so within the careers landscape, again, this could be important for you. We've got some significant changes in that the National Career Service, which does exist at the moment, is going to be the go-to place. That's going to be the main portal for careers information for everybody. So there will be labour market information here and there will be occupational maps here. I'll tell you a little bit more about those in a minute. But if you're really wanting to raise a profile of the opportunities within your sector and industry, this is where you're going to be wanting to ensure you've got your information available. Choice is at the heart of careers. So as I mentioned before, Ofsted will now be assessing schools and colleges to ensure that young people are getting access to information about the full range of progression pathways. What's really new is the statutory duty. So right now, that Gatsby benchmark applies to young people who are year 9. So they're in year 9 in schools. That's now going to be reduced to year 7. So in your first year at secondary school now, there is going to be a statutory duty for all schools to ensure that all of those 8 benchmarks are applied to year 7 students. So you can really start to instill and infuse and excite learners about the opportunities you have available. And the whole school and college approaches are the way forward. So where we talked before about it not just being on the shoulders of one careers advisor, this is about how we infiltrate every nook and cranny of every professional within a school or college to make sure that they're talking about careers. So what's really important, I think, for you to consider going forward is what does the existing offer within further education and higher education look like for your industry? And could there be an opportunity to support with college business centre agendas? I've mentioned about the National Skills Fund there, whether or not there's opportunities for you to help shape the design and delivery of short courses higher technical qualifications. So there's some key questions there. Are you involved? Do you want to be involved? Do you want to find out more about the Institute of Technology? How could you support the development of future curriculums? Can you support the ambition to grow apprenticeships? Can you work with colleges to help design those new T-level qualifications? Are you using the occupational maps? These are crucial. Do you want to tap into our 5 career hubs where we have networks of all of those schools and colleges in order to talk about the opportunities within your sector? And how could you maybe engage directly with the teaching workforce to ensure that what you want them to deliver is appropriate for what you're looking for in your future workforce? And if you want to do any of those things, this is how myself and the teams I work with can help. We can engage you in discussions with T-levels, with those colleges who are planning on delivering those qualifications most relevant to your sector. I can create a platform for you to address all of the curriculum teaching leads across the schools and the colleges in the region to talk about your area through our industry insight sessions. I can directly facilitate engagement with colleges on a one-to-one level, or if you're specifically interested in the Institute of Technology, we can provide you with access to our networks. And if you're actually really wanting to engage on a one-to-one basis with a school or college, we can match you as a volunteer from industry to help implement the careers agenda and also get your agenda on their radar. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that was smashing. And what I took heart from was the very fact that you said careers have moved into the modern times. They're not just tagged onto the already busy teacher's role and responsibility. And what you've outlined there sounds very much like we're moving in the right direction. So thank you very much for that. Sarah is head of the strategic partnerships for Enginuity, the sector skill body for engineering and manufacturing. How exciting. Enginuity creates practical solutions for individuals, educators, and manufacturing and engineering employers. So if you are in that category, just have a listen to what Sarah is about to tell us. Over to you, Beth.
Thank you very much indeed. So some of you may know Enginuity as SEMTA. So we were previously known as SEMTA up until about a year ago, Sector Skills Council for Engineering and Manufacturing. We changed our name and some of our approach following the demise of sector skills councils. But I won't dwell too much on Enginuity because I've included our website address. Everybody can go and have a look or follow up with me afterwards. Like the previous speaker, I'm not an expert in energy, heating, but my background is very much in skills and education within the engineering and manufacturing sector. And what I've done, I've got a short. I'll try and make it a short presentation for you, talking about green jobs, green skills, net zero, and just starting a little bit by focusing on what do we mean by all those terminologies. You know, one of the challenges with lots of these, often used phrases is that they can mean absolutely everything and all things to all people, and they can mean, sort of very little to lots of people. My colleague has done a really good piece of work that's pulling together. There's probably, he's found about a dozen definitions of, a green job or a green skill or net zero. And actually, I'll see if I can share that with you after the event. It's really interesting, going from, sort of European bodies to the ILO to all sorts of people who've all got those definitions. So I think it's difficult for us to talk about green skills and green jobs unless we actually start to think about what we're talking about. And I've gone for a very, very broad interpretation in terms of, anything that's looking at reducing that carbon footprint and making processes, activities, occupations more energy efficient, using more energy efficient techniques and technologies. And I think when you read about green jobs, I think you quite often get the impression that there's going to be these, whole thousands and thousands of new jobs created that nobody's ever done before, that will suddenly just appear. Where in our experience, I think the reality is slightly different, that there will be some new jobs, but the vast majority of the impact of net zero and greening will actually be changes to existing people's jobs. And automotive's a really good example of that, where if you work in the automotive sector, if you're working on the sort of the Nissan production line, you're still going to be doing that. You're just going to be doing it in a different way. You'll have a different context, you'll be doing different tasks, and what you'll be swapping from is mechanical engineering to electrical engineering, because you'll be going from an internal combustion engine to a hybrid or an electrical engine. So there's a real mix of applications when we talk about green jobs and green skills. And I think one of the interesting aspects is the national picture in terms of the government plan for green jobs and the Green Commission, but what does that mean when you get down to a local level? And it means different things depending on where you are in the country. So the automotive example is relevant if you're in an area where there's a big cluster of automotive. So if you're in the northeast with Nissan, or you're around the Midlands and Jaguar Land Rover. I think there are some examples of impact that go right across the nation. I was reading a figure, and it's not Durham related, but it's sort of across to the west in Greater Manchester. Have a target of bringing up to a current standard 60,000 homes across their patch in terms of heating and insulation, and that must be a stat that's replicated across the country. And it's looking at what's the impact of that. How do you mobilize quite quickly a workforce that are able to do that? And I think it really ties into our previous speaker around, where the LEPs and the colleges are able to really help provide those skills and that training, as well as building into apprenticeship programs, so that we start to get those skills that we need coming via every apprentice that comes out. So I've pulled out a few pictures, and I've borrowed them from different sources, because I think they give quite a good picture of what are people saying are going to happen to different jobs and different occupations. And the table on the left comes from the ILO, the International Labour Organization, and it was back in 2018, them talking about what would happen to different types of occupations. And I think it's quite easily illustrated by my pyramid on the right, where I hate the term low skilled occupations. To me, there are there's no such thing. Every job requires skills. They're just different skills. But at that bottom base of the pyramid, people will need an awareness of green technologies, of net zero, of the changing environment that we work in order to do their existing jobs. I think in the middle band, what ILO are calling the medium skilled occupations, people will need to change their skills. So, my favourite automotive example, but it works in I think, heat and energy as well, where, if somebody has been installing gas boilers, they will need to adapt and change their skills so that they can install hydrogen powered boilers, or whatever the technology is that's adopted on a mass scale. And then at the top of the pyramid, you've got those people who actually are experts in a particular technology. So they might be the people who are sort of designing and manufacturing batteries, or they might be the people who are designing a new uber efficient way of houses. But that's the top of the pyramid. There will be less people and less requirement for those experts. The key, that key middle band where people's existing jobs need to change because of net zero and because we're greening different sectors. This is a fairly old piece of information. It comes from UKCES, but I thought it was really interesting because it's just it's painting the same picture in a slightly different way and giving examples. And I think the examples still hold, 11 years later, around, the different types of occupations and the skill level, those jobs within those levels that actually are going to change. And again, by the time you get to level 5+, it's where you start to see some of those experts and some of those very specialist skills that will need to be developed. And I think one of the keys from this diagram, and I know IFATE have been doing this work, is actually looking at what is the impact on apprenticeship standards, whether we're talking about a level 3 apprentice or a level 7 degree apprentice. So trying to future-proof the people who are coming out of those apprentice programs. And you would look for the same activity, although it's more difficult because it doesn't have that central control, that central mechanism at a degree level. So universities who are offering, electrical engineering degrees, content needs to already be adapted and constantly evolving, so that people coming out with a sort of a degree in electrical engineering have actually got the knowledge, the content, the skills that are relevant to electrical and power systems. Sorry, this is a fairly complex picture and diagram, but I included it because I think the source that it comes from is really, really interesting report, and it's quite a recent report. It's a report that the Local Government Association have produced, called Local Green Jobs, Accelerating a Sustainable Economic Recovery. And when I finish presenting, I'll pop in the chat the link to it, because it's really useful from a local perspective. It covers all sorts of things, but I particularly liked this slide because what it's differentiating from is it goes straight from yellow to red, but the red, those occupations and those activities where the need is actually going to be quite short term, low carbon electricity in the nuclear sector, and identifies in quite, depending on which of the sectors that you're involved in. So, and again, I'm using this. It's a very complex slide, but I wanted to show it to you because I think it's really interesting. The next few slides are from something called ONET, and again, I'll pop the link into ONET. So the data's from the United States. It gives a really good and quite complex and in-depth picture of what they think. ONET data exists and has existed for donkey's years. It's publicly available, so you can go onto the ONET site and have a look. But this is based on a piece of work that they've done, identifying which occupations they think are going to be new, which are going to be changing, and which are going to need new skills. And this is a piece of work one of my colleagues has been doing to just take the masses of ONET data and try to present it in something which is a little bit more understandable. So what they're saying, and if you look sort of top left, they have their groupings very much as I described around, the top one where people's skills, knowledge and credentials change, so their requirement for certification. And on the left-hand side, they have a whole range of occupations. So they're, everything ranging from landscape architects through electrical engineers to bus and truck mechanics. So it is every occupation that you can think about. But if you focus on one of them, so in this example, electrical engineers, it starts to talk about the detailed work activities, the detailed constituent things that an electrical engineer will need to do as part of their future role. And then to the right hand side, it's using their database of occupations, related occupations. So an electrical engineer could also be called an electrical systems engineer, electrical research engineer. So it gives that ability to mix and match the different titles and see what's happening in that world of electrical engineering. The second group is where the context is changing. So we're not necessarily saying it's a new occupation, which is the one we've got power distributors and dispatchers. And again, what are the work activities that role is going to be doing? And I think one of the uses of this is to actually look at qualifications, So, you know, as part of the Enginuity group, we have EAL, which is our specialist awarding organisation. So we're looking at this type of data to say, what does that mean for our EAL qualifications? What does it mean for the, you know, the development of quals that we're producing to support apprenticeships, to support upskilling? And again, you have the alternative titles. Then we have the what they're talking about as the new roles, so either brand new roles or significant changes. And I think, you know, I could debate all of this. I could debate it long and hard whether an energy engineer is actually a new role. But I think in a situation where they seem to be the only people who've actually done any really detailed work at an occupation level, it gives us a starting point. And again, you'll see they've come up with the work activities, but also the alternative titles for this new role of energy engineer. They've got energy auditors, energy brokers, a whole range of what they're forecasting will those new roles. So I wanted to just use that as an illustration of, you can talk about green jobs and the skills requirements at a very top level, but you can also really drill down into quite a lot of detail. Through our EAL, our awarding organisation, we did a survey recently.
Trade association covering decentralised energy, and we've got over 150 members across energy efficiency, heat networks, combined heat and power, and demand side response, and that covers people working in domestic sector, commercial or public sector. So as Barbara said, we worked on a project for BEIS, and this has all come about through the Committee on Climate Change Netzero report, which basically says that heat networks currently provide about 2% of UK heat demand, and the ambition is for that to increase to 18%. And the growth in the heat network sector is, you know, it's essential to support our legally binding net zero targets. So we've got huge potential. We've got an estimated £16 billion worth of private sector capital investment expected within the coming years, and even more off the back of that. But ultimately, we're going to need a strong supply chain. The market's already growing, and we need to make sure that the sector has both the capability and the capacity required to match the, you know, the market growth demands. So government is working closely with industry and vice versa, to make sure we have the right skills to rise to this challenge. Now, the objective of this project that we did for BEIS last year is about baselining the skills landscape in the UK heat network sector and placing the sector on the front foot by setting out some practical recommendations to both government and industry on how they can grow capability and capacity in supply chains. So IFFR Research were the lead partners in this, and working with ACE Research and Dr. Tanya Groff at SWECO, who many of you may know. So we're very excited to undertake this project. So what was the project about? Well, I'm not going to bore you senseless with the masses of methodology, but effectively in stage one, in February of last year, we did a literature review, lots and lots of documents covering heat networks, energy, engineering, but also other sectors like wind, rail, nuclear. How have they done this kind of work? We did some skills mapping exercises. So we're using SOC codes and try to map the industry. And then stage two, a very fast-paced project, was a series of telephone interviews and workshops, 4 workshops with over 45 individuals. And obviously they were all done remotely because of COVID. And then we produced this delightful final report. Now, I will say this presentation could go on for about an hour and a half, but I've been given strict instructions for 15 minutes, so I'm going to stick to it. So do let me know at the end if you've got questions, or email me, and my contact details are on the slide. So the current research findings suggest that the industry is relatively well equipped to deal with current capacity. So that's capacity perspective. But there are some exceptions, which I will go into. Understandably, we note the lack of diversity in what is a traditionally male-dominated industry. We're seeing some bright sparks in there in terms of, you know, light at the end of the tunnel and increasing diversity. And this isn't true. This isn't just specific to heat networks. You know, when you look at energy, engineering, they all struggle to attract this diverse workforce, which in turn reduces the talent pool available, but then also then reduces the attractiveness of the sector overall, and then further limits the labour pool available. When you look ahead, so, in the next 5-10 years and the transition to net zero, the sector is unfortunately ill-equipped to respond to the surge in demand for the skills that's going to be required to meet expected growth of the sector, and that's a big problem. So when we look at some of the sectors that actually contribute to heat network development, so along the bottom there, we've got the timeline for a heat network project as you move from the preparation, the feasibility, into design and construction, and then into commissioning. And as you can see, there's a whole series of sectors that contribute in different ways and in different amounts as that progresses. So, legal and financial, big bit at the beginning, and then a bit big at the end. You've got things like engineering following all the way through with a bump at construction and surveying and the construction phase, etc. So we try to present it graphically because it's quite hard to actually write about this in the report. We've got some skills mapping. We did some skill areas and overlaps. So first of all, we looked at this public administration and urban planning. And if we can click again, please, Barbara, you can just keep clicking actually. Then we bring in the legal and financial teams. Then obviously there's a huge role for engineering, and then construction and surveying, then installation. And then we've got energy supply. And then I think we've got another click through, which is IT, and across the whole lot, we've got project management. So it's really a fascinating yet incredibly complex set of skills that we actually need to deliver on a heat network project. So we've started to look. We start to look at the current skills challenges. So these are the ones in blue. So everything from having a restricted recruitment pool, the fact that you do need a blend of skills, and that could be within a team or with an individual. We've got a lack of senior skilled roles. They're in really short supply, and that's currently now. We've got individual roles that are not solely focused on heat networks, and we've got fewer grad students attracted in. And then you can see the other factors and consequences that come from that. So, we're less visible of a sector, which means we get fewer grad students attracted in, which further restricts the recruitment pool. So you can see graphically how this, as I say, is a very complex situation. So when we look at skills lacking by occupations, and these are just several of those that are detailed in the report, you've got things like design engineers, these master planners, they have a lack of commercial and legal understanding. And then when you look at legal advisors, they have a lack of experience and understanding of heat networks. When we look at things like project delivery managers, they don't perhaps have the experience and understandings of heat networks. So they've worked in other areas of engineering or other areas of the decentralized energy sector, but not specifically on heat networks. And they are a very different beast. Interestingly, there on the bottom is the operational maintenance technicians or inspectors. And these are, problem solvers. You get a social housing provider and their system goes down. You've already got a system that's in operation. Who do you call when there are problems? And I linked in with the Heat Network Forum, and that's a group which I'll talk about in just a second, that actually controls a huge, vast array of heat networks across the United Kingdom. And they've literally got like a list of 3 or 4 people that they go to when they've got issues. And what happens when those people disappear because they're off through COVID, they might have retired, for example. What do you actually do? So we've got a solution to come up with that. So looking at the skills challenges facing the sector, perhaps not so much now, but actually going into the future, there are some impacts that may result from having this skills gap. And these can come about in different ways. It could be delays to the development of a heat network, so it's taking longer to recruit the right person for a particular role. And actually, you might get delays if you've got insufficiently skilled individuals put in post. You might end up with lower quality projects. So we found examples from stakeholders that we interviewed where roles were fulfilled by candidates with perhaps fewer skills and experience that would have been ideal, which has led to mistakes being made or poor quality deliverables. And that could be something like heat networks cost more to deliver or operate. If supply doesn't meet demand, the cost to hire individuals to meet those skills gaps is likely to be higher. And obviously there's potential errors that could be made in the network's design, development and operation, which could lead to additional substantial costs. I say broadly, there is a general reliance on subcontractors, and that's because organisations don't have the skilled resource in-house to deliver what they need to deliver, or they can't scale up quickly enough to deliver new projects internally. And so what we've done with the report is actually identify opportunities to fill these gaps and actually then look at expanding on the capacity and the capability of the sector. So how do we actually mitigate against these issues? How do we resolve them? So we've got quite a few options that we recommend in our report. In terms of the short term, it's things like liaising with energy hubs and LEPs to explore knowledge building in the sector, and this is particularly true for local authorities. It's about promoting the sector to young people through the National Careers Service. And I have to say I was thrilled to see what Kim was talking about earlier. In the midterm, it could be a partnership liaison with sector skills councils. It's partnerships to create common standards for knowledge to include accredited qualifications and making sure we're incorporating all those skills needs into those standards. It's about encouraging, CPD, schemes such as SIBSI, and it's, things like reviewing the success of the offshore wind passport system. And a key one for me here, which was really frustrating when we were delivering this project, is the lack of workforce data. There's no specific SOC code, standard occupant classification, for heat networks. So actually finding the people who were working in this industry was actually quite difficult. And then moving on to the longer term, linked to that is actually then starting to publish that data and then start considering diversity targets, which is something that the nuclear and the wind industry do particularly well. There's also things like encouraging large and smaller employer collaboration on training, and we've certainly seen examples of that, but it needs to be upscaled massively. And the creation of heat network relevant university modules and targeting communications to those university students. And there's a link that I'll share at the end, which is a piece of research which was done by Energy Saving Trust Scotland and the Scottish Government and delivered by Dr. Ruth Bush. And she looks at modules within Scottish universities and how they are designed around heat networks. So moving on, we've got some industry initiatives that are ongoing that we've identified in the report, and I'm thrilled to see that they're there. I think BEIS weren't expecting that there would be that many, but we found quite a few, and I think they really are key to delivering. It's not just government policy, it's industry working with the sector, with government to deliver on this. We're going to be hearing soon from Peter when we finally get his presentation sorted from the Heat Academy. And they've got colleges in Stoke-on-Trent and Bridgend. They're located next to ongoing heat network development areas. You've got AD members such as Uniper, SSE being involved in that. And we hope and we want to facilitate the Heat Academy being bigger and broader. In terms of the ADE, we convened something called the Heat Network Industry Council, or HEATNIC, and this is a group of major companies who invest and deliver in heat networks in the UK, and this was launched by the Minister in June. And this is about escalating the level of engagement with government. So if government and BEIS can deliver on policy, then the industry ultimately can deliver on investment and delivering the net zero ambition. And there is a specific working group on skills along with any others. And there is a website, if you literally just put in Heat Networks Industry Council, we've got a whole website there. Interestingly, both Jackie and Barbara were saying about impacts of COVID. Now, impacts on Brexit, there's quite a few, but it's yet to be fully scoped out, something that my team are working on at the moment. But in terms of suppliers, do check out heatnetworkexchange.co.uk. And this is a website developed by BEIS and also ADE. And this is about promoting sector resilience during the pandemic. So if you're at a loss and you need a supplier, you can actually go to the Heat Network Exchange website and find a supplier and you can register there. Very quickly, another two examples. I mentioned the Heat Network. This is a group of social housing providers covering, 80,000 homes on over 900 heat networks. And they have a working group that's both social housing providers and local authorities. And they meet regularly and talk about different topics, including skills. And finally, heat exchanger. Perhaps you are looking for a mentor, or perhaps you could be a mentor, but there's a whole heat exchanger program that is looking to support those younger graduates all the way through the sector. Very quickly, this is something that my team are delivering for Scottish Government, which is the LHES, Local Heat and Energy Efficiency Strategies. These are a piece of policy that means that each local authority in Scotland needs to look at strategically how they would deliver energy efficiency, retrofit and heat decarbonisation across the areas. It's currently in a pilot phase, but hopefully it will become statutory duty in the coming months. And this is just some of the information noted by interviewees in an earlier phase of the skills that's needed. And it's like a wish list. And you know, sometimes this is one individual, sometimes it's a team, but, you know, they need to understand about energy in terms of bills, usage, building physics, building surveys, how to do energy performance certificates, understanding planning, understanding building control, understanding how to influence policy and strategy within the council, so senior management and elected members. They also need to be really good project managers, working with key stakeholders, and then also doing stakeholder engagement, including the general public, which is quite a wish list. So we've got quite a mountain to climb. We're certainly on the mountain and on our way up. But lots to do and lots to do around skills in this sector in particular. So this is just a thank you. So as I say, I've included the my email address in there. Feel free to ping me over any questions, or if you want the full version of the presentation, I'm more than happy to deliver it. There's the link there to the BEIS Heat Network Skills Report. It's an avid read. It's some good bedtime reading. It's pretty big. There's also the link to the EST Scotland and Scottish Government Skills Report, which I mentioned looked at specific university modules across Scotland and how they integrate with heat networks. And then two other things that I wanted to mention, which was and I always forget this acronym, the CITB, Construction Industry Training Boards, will be publishing skills research, hopefully on the 8th of March. So watch this space. And that is looking at kind of building on the LGA work that was mentioned in the last presentation from Sarah. But it looks at the climate change scenarios and the carbon budgets. And then it also kind of populates with an idea of how many jobs and what skills are required. Now, that project was due to be published in May of 2020, so we're a little bit delayed, but hotly anticipated and very excited about getting my mitts on it. And then the final thing is the ADE are doing a We Are Hiring campaign, and this is all about, you know, what is a green job, how to ensure a just transition, so, you know, high carbon industries moving into kind of making sure that their employees are given the opportunity to do a green job. So watch this space, and you can follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and that's it from me.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Gaskell. I'm Head of School of Technology at New College, Durham. I'm joined today by two of my managers. One of them is Harry Teasdale, who's Curriculum Manager for Plumbing and Gas, and Liam McGurk, who's Curriculum Manager for Automotive. And two very passionate managers who helped me design the curriculum, make sure the curriculum's current for young people, and looking to the future as well without the design and the investment that we get through here at New College Durham. We're going to be focusing on skills and training for the decarbonisation of heating and electric vehicles. Just to mention the School of Technology at New College Durham, we're one of 6 schools. The School of Technology focuses on construction, engineering and automotive. And we have about 1,600 students in total, about 800 full-time students, 500 apprentices, and we do quite a bit of higher education part-time as well, HNCs, HNDs, and foundation degrees. So about 80 staff as well. So again, the largest school within the college. As Kim mentioned before, we have now got Institute of Technology status with a lead on the Institute of Technology for the Northeast, the NEIOT. We've been building this up during the COVID and during lockdown, and we're still waiting for resources coming in now. But it's all about really a focus on developing or helping to develop a highly skilled technical workforce using higher technical qualifications, very strong focus on level 4 and 5. Good example, we worked with Nissan 2 years ago and we developed a foundation degree with them. And every Friday we have 64 of their students, employees come to us to study for a foundation degree in advanced manufacturing. So that's in maintenance. So that's excellent. That was a really good start for us with the IoT. We also, as a college, setting the scene really before we move on, the college has made a lot of investment over the last 2 years. STEM investment, got a new building which cost $8.5 million. And it's all about supporting the increase of young people coming into STEM subjects. It's been mentioned before on certain slides before this from presenters. You know, we've got a challenge ahead of us. We've got to make sure, and certainly in my areas, that there's young people out there who want to come into STEM subjects. We've got to encourage and motivate them. You know, we've got new emerging technologies coming through, such as the decarbonisation of heating, electric vehicle, wind technologies. We've got to change our curriculum to suit and make sure that we're motivating young people to come in. So this is really the NCD, New College Durham, journey to support net zero and beyond. Yeah, so we're going to focus in on 2 areas, training for the future and priority areas of ground and air source heating systems, which Harry will cover, and Liam will cover a bit on electric vehicle technology and the investments we're making there. You know, it's very much about us designing the curriculum and putting employers at the heart of what we do, and ensure that the future is about having a higher skilled workforce in place, but who've got the knowledge and understanding that will support the net zero future as well, and the adaptable skills for the future. What was already mentioned about, you know, gas engineers currently, are they going to have the skills of the future that's needed to be able to adapt across to the likes of ground and air source heating systems? Electric vehicle, will motor vehicle current technicians, will we be able to develop the right skills for them? So this is part of our ambition in developing our curriculum to support this. It was also mentioned about T-levels. We've started the journey of T-levels already. We started them this year, September 20, as an academic year, in construction, design, surveying, civil engineering. And for the future, we will be looking at the building services, which encompasses plumbing and electrical. And we're looking at engineering and advanced manufacturing, which will include automotive. So I think that what we are looking at New College Durham, we design the curriculum and we do it quite rigorously through like a curriculum review process with our senior managers. And it is rigorous. If they're going to invest in our curriculum, we have to say what we are doing and how we are designing the curriculum appropriately for the future. So, training for the future investment, I've already mentioned the investment the college has made, but we've also had substantial funding from the NELEP, which is excellent, towards our electric vehicles. We've also had DFE funding to support the IoT. So we're on the journey, and the investment is really obviously, you know, at the forefront of that. Curriculum planning, I've mentioned, we've got to make sure we've got an ambitious curriculum and that we're always taking LEP priorities into place, advanced manufacturing processes, energy, which we do. We work with our local employers, local market intelligence from them to tell us what jobs are required in the future, what skills will be needed for training, apprenticeships. Mentioned we have a large number of apprentices across the sectors of construction, engineering and automotive. And we've helped to develop the standards for the apprenticeships to make sure they've got the right content in for employers and working with employers for that. HE developments, yeah, we try to develop the HE to suit employers' demands. And again, the IoT, the Institute of Technology, will drive that forward more as well, where we can help upskill the workforce, current workforce, for employers from different levels, but we will be looking and focusing on that with the resources that we're going to have in place in the Institute of Technology. Strongest focus on the construction side with building information modeling, BIM, aspects of advanced manufacturing as well. And again, working with the partners, Nissan, Newcastle University, East Durham College, Middlesbrough College and Tyne Coast. So good partnerships, good strong partnerships in place to be able to do this. And that's part of the IoT development. So I'm going to ask Harry if he'll just inform the audience around the ground and air source heat pump technology that we're investing in and looking into the future and how it fits into our curriculum. Are you there, Harry?
I'm Harry Teasdale. I'm curriculum manager for plumbing in the college, stroke building services. My background is plumbing and heating engineer. I then went on to do HNC and then building services engineering degree. So I have a really strong focus on building services engineering. I've been talking to a few of the employers that we work with apprenticeships, and a lot of it is moving into the green technology area. For instance, my own two sons, they're plumbers, and one of them served their time for a company that only did ground and air source heat pumps, solar thermal, things like that. But it is still a very niche market as far as employers who just focus on that. But what I'm tending to get feedback from employers now is that market is opening up, and we're starting to see employers that mainly focused in the gas sector with boilers, etc., moving into ground and air source heat pump technology. So with those negotiations and talks with the employers that we're working with, the college is going to focus in on providing some qualifications to national occupational standards around ground and air source heat pumps, which will hopefully help those employers move into that low carbon era as we obviously move towards decarbonisation. Also, our full cost gas centre, which obviously only focuses on natural gas at the moment, we can foresee in the future when we start mixing hydrogen into the natural gas network, that obviously there's going to be a major upskilling around combustion performance analysis for existing gas engineers as we move into those mixed gases. So that's just a little short taster of what we're doing in the plumbing department. And obviously we will be linking into the electrical department as well, because building services is obviously linked with the obviously mechanical and electrical side.
Thanks, Harry. That's interesting. Again, you know, what I mentioned is we'll go through rigorous curriculum planning in the college, and investments will continue to be made in the right areas where Harry wants those areas, and where, you know, he informs us about what's going to be specific for the future to support employers, support apprenticeship programs, and then support the progression into higher education as well. So the links are all there that are coming through, and I think that's really, really important for us.
Yeah, can I just interject there, Ian? Is that okay?
Fine.
Yeah. Just going back to what Kelly was talking about a little bit earlier, it was quite interesting actually about how we're going to upskill and get the actual installation engineers. We have quite a lot of those actually in the workforce at the moment, but looking at how the apprenticeship frameworks are put together, especially in the plumbing sector, I think they missed the boat. I think all of our apprenticeship frameworks are always behind the curve as far as decarbonisation, purely and simply because especially in my sector, if you're wanting green technologies, that's a specific unit, but the employer must install those particular elements. I think as a more rounded approach as we move forward, and with a little bit of push with government and obviously the IFA, is we need our plumbers, our existing plumbing and heating engineers, to be able to work on ground and air source heat pumps while they're doing their apprenticeships, as well as gas, as well as knowing about the 20% introduction of hydrogen. You know, it's something I've always been passionate about, that we're always behind the curve with apprenticeships. We can see what the future is going to be, but employers only focus on what they're doing at the time rather than thinking, right, in 10 years' time, we are going to be doing a lot of ground and air source heat pumps and things of that nature. So just going back to like what Kelly said, it definitely needs pushing forward, that we encompass a lot more of these technologies in apprenticeships that we already have.
What you can't see is that Kelly is vehemently agreeing with you in the chat that's running down the thing.
That's good overview, Harry. Thanks for that. Excellent. And I think everything's linking into some of the previous presentations as well, Barbara, which is really good. And Liam's just going to discuss a little bit about electrical vehicle training equipment. Some images of the training equipment that we've invested in. So over to you, Liam.
Thanks, Ian. I hope everybody can hear me. I'll forgive the introductions, like I say, because I know we're short of time, Barbara. So we'll just go with it. The college is making a substantial investment in an electric vehicle. That rig that you can see on the left-hand side is based on a Nissan Leaf. And as you know, Nissan is up in Sunderland. We work with Nissan. We do deliver qualifications from level 1 to level 3 full-time, and we deliver the current standards at level 2 and level 3. We've just recently gone through endpoint assessment, and there's been a very strong focus on electric and hybrid vehicles. Now, we've also, from feedback assessment, like Harry says, the awarding bodies are very, very aware of what we need to do for electrification of vehicles as well. The problems that we've got as a college is we predominantly deal with small to medium enterprises. That's where our problems are, because what you've got is there is a reluctancy for those garages and those employees and owners to sort of engage with hybrid and electric vehicle technology because of the dangers associated with these type of vehicles. We currently deliver qualifications for level 2 and level 3 for electrical and hybrid vehicle awareness. Now, there's a real sort of health and safety aspect to working on these type of vehicles, which is predominantly what the core qualification is. There is qualifications available from the IMI at the level 4. And again, that's actually getting into the systems, diagnosing the systems, replacing the components as well. Okay, so the challenges that we have is that people are reluctant to sort of engage with this type of vehicle, but they are coming around. Research recently that I've carried out with employers, again, is there is a niche market, and very much like what Sarah was saying before, there's going to be automotive specialist technicians, really, and you've got pockets of that already, certainly with not even just with electric vehicles, but transmission systems, electronics and stuff like that. The next 10 years, okay, well, I'm currently working on a working group. It's the IoT, it's DFE funded, and it's looking at qualification. It's automotive electrification qualification, and it ranges from level 2 to 7. Now that working group is in place now. I'm actually late for a meeting this morning, which I don't mind. And we're looking at, and we're part of that working group to bring that into the IoT, like Ian says, and to bring in our partner colleges, and to bring in other people that we need to be working with to sort of like drive forward the electrification of vehicles and electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. So other than that, I'm conscious of time, I'll just open to questions really, or over to you, Barbara.
Do you know what, lads? That was spot on. I don't know whether you can see the piece of paper I've got in front of me, but I wrote on here, it's absolutely fabulous having all this ambition, but how far are we behind other countries with regard to our training? And from what you're saying, we're in catch-up mode. And then I've put, does health and safety feature at all? The energy sector, for example, prides itself on a good record in this area. What are we doing? We need that joined up into anything that we're teaching anyone, because it's such an important area. So thank you very, very much for addressing those issues. Peter, are you going to give it a go, Pet? And
I will make it a good try at least. Thanks for letting me join this session from Stockholm, actually. Anyway, I'm the founder of Heat Academy, which Kelly mentioned earlier. And just very briefly on myself, I've been working in the heat network industry for the past 20 plus years, primarily the first 10 years, primarily in the Nordic market, but now increasingly internationally. And what we've tried to do, this is very much of an industry initiative. We see a very strong need, not only in the UK, but all across, for developing skills into this sector, not just heat networks, but we've heard mentioning heat pumps. So what we have as a common denominator is decarbonizing heating and cooling. That's what we're trying to do. And I will outline a bit of what we tried to achieve in the Heat Academy. I should underline from the very start, this is a collaborative approach. It's an industry approach. We are not here to set up a new college or a new university anywhere. Our aim is to collaborate with existing colleges and universities in the market and regions where we operate, and bringing with us the industry stakeholders, not only from the UK, but from the other countries in which we operate as well. And we believe very much in collaboration in this field. And I see that myself, that many projects are being slowed because you start from a blank sheet of paper often, and that makes them expensive as well. So what we need is much more of exchange, collaboration, and replication of good and best practice to speed up the decarbonization of heat networks and so forth. We started back in 2014-15 delivering training courses, and up till March we did it in real world, and since then we have done it on online platforms like this. But that has helped us also to reach many more people that we couldn't reach before. So we have had 10,000 people plus participating in our sessions. Now I should underline that these are not curriculums that you would see as a training session in a college or a university. Much of it so far has been awareness training in different areas, not only in the technical field, but also in the financial, commercial aspects of district heating and decarbonizing heating solution. Our aim is to build up, and UK is our home market, that's where we are based. Our aim is to build up regional clusters. And we have now 4 regional clusters which are well up and running in the UK. We have Scotland, the most recent one. We've had one in Staffordshire for quite a while, down in South Wales, etc. And within each region, we try to start collaboration with local universities, colleges, but also industry stakeholders. I'll come back to that a bit later. We also see a very strong interest from international markets. So we are, as you can see on the picture as well, establishing similar clusters in other markets. And more recently, we have become established in collaboration again with local partners in Canada and in the East Coast of US. And actually we have 2 or 3 even emerging hubs in Asia. As I said, this is an industry-led initiative, and my background and many of the people in the Heat Academy have a long background in the industry, and quite a few of them actually from the Nordic region. Where we've had these policies of decarbonizing heating and heat networks for the past, well, very much took off in connection to the oil crisis in the 70s. And the 2 mantras that were, everybody worked along in those days in the Nordic region was conserve, so that is to say, increase energy efficiency in your buildings, and connect to heat networks. And this was a response to the oil crisis. We didn't have gas as UK had, so we had to do this in a different way. And since then, it has evolved very, very quickly. So in where I'm based right now, sitting right now, 90% of the buildings in Stockholm are connected to a heat network, having a shared heat source. And over time, we have also been able to reduce the fossil fuel content in the heat networks. This has been good. It was done from energy security perspective, but it has given lots of other effects. For instance, in terms of balance of trade, where there is a big opportunity in the UK to reduce the imports of gas if we can increase the scale of heat networks. I don't go into details of all of this, but we try to emphasize the broader societal benefits of investing in heat networks. They are profitable as such as soon as you reach a certain scale, but the local benefits in terms of creating jobs, addressing social welfare, etc., you cannot really measure the effect of that. It's very substantial. These topics are very much in focus across Europe and in many other countries across the globe to do this, exactly what we're talking about. And heating is a very good area to address. Almost half of the CO2 emissions in a country like UK is from heating of buildings. Most of it is gas-based, so that is the reason why it is so much. And we know from the Nordic perspective that this can be done. You can actually decarbonize heating. It has been proven in other countries as well. So this is, the mantra is back, conserve and connect, and this is what we try to focus on. And if I move into the UK market, there is a very strong ambition now to take heat networks from current 2% market share and bringing it up to 20%. And that's enormous. That's extreme, very, very big undertaking, and which will require lots of skills. Doing this, for instance, I used to work for many years in the pre-insulated pipe business, pipes for district heating. So I can translate it to pipes. You're going to put 25 million 12-meter long pipes in the ground in the next 20 years. And beyond that, tens of millions of other pieces of equipment if you are to reach the 20% market share. And I'm convinced that UK, I can just see it's fantastic, the development right now in the UK. And similarly in other countries, I have absolutely no doubt that that will not happen. The challenge in this is skills. Based on the experience we have from the Nordic region, there is a need to rapidly train 100,000 people with bespoke training for the sector of decarbonizing heating and cooling. It's obviously not only about putting pipes in the ground, it's about installing equipment, it's digital technologies, but it's also program management, which Kelly mentioned, and administration. All kinds of skills are needed, and we tend to divide them into professional skills and vocational skills. And just to give you an idea, I will obviously share the slides. Where there is really a demand, and that's what I often say in these sessions, is the area in between vocational skills and professional skills. You need in these projects people who are not only trained at universities, they need to have a vocational experience as well. So I think this hybrid training, we see it a lot in the Nordic region, also in other industry sectors. This is critical to have people with both the theoretical ability, but then the attitude to go out in a trench when it's blowing and 5 degrees outside. We need both sides. And here's an example of partners in the Scottish region, across the UK actually, with examples from colleges and universities. And as I said, we try to, in the regions, also involve the local supply chain to start with. And if there is no local supply chain, then we involve the international supply chain. And this is a project that we are currently delivering for Energy Saving Trust in Scotland to mobilize stakeholders and to deliver a number of courses. Again, I said that over and over again in collaboration with local universities and colleges. Now, what is the content of the training? Well, we need to look at the value chain of, for instance, a heat network. And often when we look at the value chain, we tend to start with the heat production and then go into distribution, and then we connect buildings, and then we connect the customers. The way we do it is to do it the other way around. Just to emphasize that we need people also not only with engineering skills, we need people who are able to engage at an early stage with customers, to sell, to communicate, to explain, to train not only the users, but also political decision makers in communities to explain what are the policies required. And I think it's really important to emphasize this, that we need a broad range of skills, not only engineers in this sector. Then there is a big element of engineering, obviously, but we need to start with the customer when we approach this. Quickly, quick comments to this slide. We are focusing the training on delivery of projects, obviously, and the program management, but we also, as I mentioned, are focusing on strategy, political strategies, financing strategies, and so on. So here is, again, an initiative now we are delivering up in Scotland, where we are delivering and specifying bespoke training packages in the area of vocational skills. I just share this with you very quickly to give you an idea what kind of skills we are looking at in this initiative. And similarly, we have another program focusing on the professional skills and the training. And we had a few weeks back an initiative, an online session in focusing on the Scottish market for district heating, where we involved local colleges, universities, the local supply chain. All these were invited to it. And then we had a long range of suppliers presenting what are the technologies, what are the things you need to know to install, and where do they see the priorities? Where do we need, if they were to recruit, where do they see the priorities? And that was a very interesting dialogue, giving us a lot of information to how to prioritize as we move forward. Anybody who's interested in joining us in a session this afternoon, we are doing a session with University of St. Andrews. They have already implemented a heat network, and we're going to learn from the experiences. And they will actually become one of the hubs for training in the Scottish region. And we have other sessions coming up. I should also, because that was highlighted in a previous presenter, digitalization, that's huge. That's significant. When I started in the industry 20 years ago, they gave me a spade. That was the mantra, you need to use a spade. Now you need both the spade and the computer, and the digital solutions must be in forefront in any education across this industry, both when it comes to design, installation, and operations of the systems. And that's something we highlight quite a lot. We also see these places, these clusters, as we call them, as business hubs. And I think that was mentioned earlier in an earlier presentation as well. Many companies are now looking at the UK. They know that UK will invest heavily in these kind of technologies, and there will be lots of inward investments coming to the UK. And there will be lots of local companies in the UK, not least from the oil and gas sector, which is a very strong advantage you have in the UK, that you have that skill and that experience. So there will be good opportunities for reskilling, by the way, in that sector. But we need to be able to facilitate market access to these companies, to quickly help them find people they can recruit, locations where they can become installed and established. And linked to Brexit, I saw that there was one thing you wanted us to comment on. I think, and what my advice is to any international company, if you want to do business in the UK going forward, you need to be local. You can't do it from abroad. You need to have local presence, which is quite strong. Not just because of Brexit, but because of the size of the market we are looking at and the significant investments that will be carried out. So we see this, we have labeled this the HeatNet Global as this business hub, which we have developed and done in, as mentioned earlier, in Stoke. We have it in South Wales. It's emerging in the Humber region, but we also have it in Switzerland and Netherlands and in Toronto region, and that facilitates sales and business between these hubs, obviously. As I mentioned, I think this is something that we emphasize quite a lot in the UK, looking at existing industries. Where do we find skills? I think in the short term, upskilling or reskilling are the key priorities. There are some really good skills in the oil and gas sector, as I mentioned. I used to be a supplier to the oil and gas, so I know that it's really, really complex to become a supplier. They're very demanding in whatever they do. But another example is in South Wales, where we collaborate in the Bridgend City Council and the Bridgend College. They had recently had this decision taken by Ford to close a big engine manufacturing plant, 2,000 employees. And there are efforts now to approach people from the plant who are now being made redundant and to look for reskilling into this sector. Well, I think I stop there. I think better if there are any questions, and I will obviously share the slides with you.
That's absolutely great. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for persisting and eventually getting your slide back up there. We're going to move on to our final speaker now, and then we'll take some questions at the end. So, last but not least, Professor Halliday runs the CDT and the Centre for Doctoral Training in Energy, and it's been running for 10 years and has admitted 92 PhD candidates. He's an expert in materials physics and researches new approaches for next generation of thin film photovoltaic devices.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Barbara. And yeah, thanks everyone for a really fascinating session. I'm going to cut my presentation a little short to allow more time for discussion, but the slides will be circulated, so you will be able to sort of see all the detail that I'm glossing over. And really what I wanted to do was to talk about the role that universities have in contributing to this really important agenda that we've discussed today. So I think for me, a key issue is, what do we actually mean by net zero? We need to be clear, think about what our approach is, what it is we're seeking to achieve in terms of carbon reduction, in terms of energy transition, think about the associated skills that are required, how those are developed. Important issues, I think, about who pays for all of this. Obviously, university students in England have a different fee regime from university students in Scotland and other devolved nations, and the funding models are very different for the kinds of qualifications that people have been talking about. So I think that's an important dimension that needs to be considered. So in summary, what can universities provide? Well, I think most people recognize we provide education, training, skills, motivation. We provide recognition through qualifications. But we're also thinking about how we develop and envision people who can become future leaders. We think about working across different sectors. We think about creating a culture of lifelong learning. And of course, this is all really important in terms of linking to the skills agenda. I think a particular challenge for universities is how we're structured. So you can see here on the screen this issue of how universities are structured. So traditionally, we have a whole range of different academic disciplines. But of course, the challenges we are facing today, not just net zero, not just energy, but things like poverty, disease, hunger, climate action are grouped in different frameworks. So I've got here a representative framework, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. So of course, the challenge for us is how we map our approach at universities, which is very much in academic disciplines, to this much broader range of challenges which span across different disciplinary silos and boundaries. So one approach we have taken at Durham is to run a doctoral training centre. So these are doctoral qualifications, level 8 qualifications in the UK, third cycle qualifications, Bologna framework. So, at the sort of higher end of the academic qualification, specialism, but you also need the breadth. So we are really clear that we want our researchers to understand how their individual skill, how their individual project fits within a much wider framework. So we get them to engage in things like public debate, we get them to engage in outreach, we get them to engage in discussions with people from other disciplines, and thereby learn a language and a dialogue. How you communicate with people whose expertise is not your own is really important in this area. So the benefits of this kind of broad-ranging multidisciplinary environment are many. So we want people to develop behaviors where they can become independent, they can become autonomous, they can become flexible. And when they see a particular challenge, they might think, well, I'm not quite sure what the answer is, but if I go and ask this person over in this area here, they can help me. So those kinds of behaviors will emerge from this environment that we offer to people. Structured programs, so I've mentioned already about outreach and team working. And I think this idea of developing the identity of an individual is really important. How you describe yourself says an awful lot about how you think about what you can do and your place in the world, and that's really important. So this issue of breadth versus depth is a key issue for us. Obviously, at the higher end of the qualification scale, the doctorate or the PhD, you specialize in a narrow area, but you also need to understand how that fits in a much wider context. And you need to develop these communication skills. There's no point in being able to give a seminar if people can't understand it. So it's about developing a vocabulary and a way of communicating that opens up what you know and what you understand to others. So I think the challenge for universities in tackling this are many and varied. We need to innovate our programs, and we have seen over the last year, COVID has really prompted us to move to digital delivery. We need to engage with and listen to societal and industrial needs and evolve and develop our programs. We need to modernize our approach to learning and teaching. We need to embed challenge-based approaches, so sort of case studies, real life challenges, and so on. We need to break down disciplinary barriers so that people can pull in expertise from a whole range of areas. I think we need more flexibility. We need to think about short courses, modular courses, lifelong learning. And this requires, I think, development at all levels that the university engages in terms of offering qualifications and recognition. So for me, it's about creating the right kind of environment for our students to learn. How do you develop skills and knowledge? What is the new learning based on experiential learning? We've seen some fantastic approaches in terms of getting people out into the field, practical skills, demonstrators, and so on. All those are really part of that. We need to think the role of ourselves as educators. What are we there for? We're not really there to stand at the front of large classrooms and espouse wisdom. We want people to learn and develop their own skills, which they own for themselves. And we want to combine this issue of breadth and depth. A number of people have touched on this, understanding the context of how your expertise fits into the whole energy system is really important. It's not just about technical knowledge, it's understanding a little bit about societies and citizens, it's understanding financial models, it's understanding policy and planning, and it's understanding how your idea that you've developed links into what it is you're trying to achieve. So that alignment between technology and society is so important. And obviously that involves working with other sectors. So various strategies that we are thinking about at Durham in terms of design, obviously high-level institutional support comes from Durham Energy Institute. We're thinking about the culture change in universities, having a much broader framing of ourselves, and that's where Durham Energy Institute comes in, that spans across many different academic departments. We think about staff development opportunities. We think about this role of different disciplines, how they come together and how they enrich and add value for each other. And I've already talked about many of their points here, this variety of learning approaches, case studies, challenge-based problem solving, cross-sector collaboration, lifelong learning, context matters, and communication skills. Those are all really important and have to be embedded in the educational experience that we are offering. This is a framework. I don't really have time to talk about this in detail, but there is a URL there, a bit.ly URL. This is a European-wide action agenda document that I helped to develop through the European University Association. And that really sets out a vision for how we can develop master's and doctoral level programs, and to some extent bachelor level programs, to address the energy challenge. And it's all about interdisciplinarity, it's all about cross-sector working, it's all about integration, and it's all about bringing it all together in a holistic sense. So you can look at that and get more details. So really, towards net zero, we need to think about new career trajectories in sustainable and renewable energy systems. We need a dynamic and skilled workforce, people that can switch from one area to another because their expertise enables them to do that. So how can you, when you're advising someone at an early stage in their sort of development at school or at FE college or wherever that might be, to see themselves as someone who can move around? We need to think about the skills gap. We need to think about how we can in the UK break down these silos and open up new educational pathways. And I think universities are key stakeholders in that process. So I think we need to open up and have a much broader dialogue with other people in the area. And then concluding from me, this idea that universities are responsible for evolving education and training programs. We ourselves need to learn to innovate. We need to think about how we add value to the educational experience. We need to think about cross-disciplinary approaches, new flexible models for accumulating credit, skills, and qualifications across a whole lifetime, not just initially. And it's a new generation of problem solvers. And I think that's really important. And then finally to say, universities do work internationally, but we do need to think about how we might mitigate some of the challenges that, Brexit has introduced. And I think in the view of time, I will say thank you very much, and I'm going to stop there.
Thank you very much, Douglas. That was really great. Honestly, I'm blown away by what I've heard today. Just the breadth of the whole task ahead of us is quite scary. We've got a short period of time here for a few questions and answers, but not very long. And I'm going to use Chairman's privilege and just ask a question sparked by something that Kelly said earlier. And she mentioned that there's 166 billion investment expected in the areas that we've been discussing in order to deliver the green transition. And I'm just thinking about all the skills, the jobs that have been mentioned today. How is it that we can ensure that that money is well spent? It's spent at the right time by the right organisations and helps all of you deliver the challenges that you've just explained to us. I wonder if somebody would like to have a go at answering that question. Is anybody brave enough out there?
I'll kick off, Barbara, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I think, and it was something that I mentioned to in the chat earlier, I think the thing that we really need to get right first is long-term policy and programs. So, you know, we've gone some way in terms of policy, whether that's specific to heat networks, whether that's Boris's 10-point plan, the energy white paper, we're waiting for heat and building strategy. There's lots of policy coming, and we need to get that policy right. And then alongside that, you need, you know, policy people, getting the people right, and the pounds, as it were. And some of that needs to be from government, and that could be focused on skills, or that could be focused on feasibility or kind of technology. But we need that structure in place, and that's effectively what that heat NIC is doing, to make sure that the policy's in place. So then that, you know, multi-billion private sector investment comes in. There's a work stream around skills, there's a work stream around procurement, etc. And I think we just need to get all of our ducks in a row to make sure that when that investment comes through, there's an element of it's going to the right people, as you say, it's going to the right organisations, and we're just not making the mistakes that perhaps we've made in the past. I won't say any names. So yeah, I think that's my point that I want to add to that.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else want to have a go at that one?
Well, just very quickly, Barbara, I think coordination across multiple sectors, multiple agencies is so important. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, this is a long-term societal investment. It's not a simple financial transaction. We need to see it as investing in creating a better society for all of us. And I think there are really some significant challenges in sort of the levelling up and social mobility agenda that, you know, energy is a proxy for many things. It's so deeply embedded in our society. And if we can get that right, then I think that opens up and levels up for so many people. So it's much broader than just, you know, heat pumps and having warm homes. I think there's a real opportunity here to invest in the sort of green as a proxy for levelling out right across society.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara, could I come in? Do you mind? It's Adrian from Durham County Council.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in Durham for 10 years now, and Durham County Council has its own direct labour force. We have plumbers, we have electricians, we have plasterers. We can do all this. And we've got a lot of experience of doing it. Home improvement. We used to put bathrooms and kitchens into people's houses, you know, when they didn't have them in the 60s. Local authorities did that. We did this sort of stuff on a massive scale, street by street. We can do it. If the government, the BASE programme, they've currently just cut the BASE programme, the £2 billion voucher scheme, to 330 million. If they reallocate that 1.5 billion to energy hubs and local authorities and set up a couple of pilots where you've got a direct labour force, such as Durham, if you say to Durham, look, here is a big chunk of money to go and decarbonise your domestic housing stock. We can plan for that. You can plan ahead. You can bring people in, you can employ people, and you can retrain more plumbers, you can retrain more electricians, and you can retrain more insulation specialists to do it. It isn't difficult. The problem is, it's about the mechanism of delivery. And we have to get a bit more public sector focused, really, I'm afraid. The private sector on its own, a voucher scheme, giving vouchers to individual homeowners isn't working. It can't work because you can't deliver at scale, and the supply chain won't meet that. The supply chain needs scale, and we can do that as a public authority, as a local authority in partnership with housing associations and the procurement frameworks we have to deliver this at scale. So all we need to do, BASE, reallocate your voucher scheme into local authorities. We'll do the work for you. 1,000, which was billions attached to giving people decent homes. Well, let's make decarbonised homes. Let's get them decarbonised and get the funding out into us. And we'll do it.
I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, a 5-year parliamentary term doesn't help with delivery of long-term social and transitional movements like this one to net zero. What we need is some sort of overarching government department to be there for the long term and ensure that we train wise, train smart, spend wise, spend smart, and have collaboration as the key for this longer term transition, because it doesn't work out into 5-year chunks. And vanity projects can't be allowed to be in there. We need something that's going to be for everyone.
It needs a long-term 2030 commitment, you know, at the minimum a 2030 commitment.
Anyway, right, okay. I have got a couple of other questions in the chat feed. Here's one for the panelists. Lots of emphasis today on the young people entering the jobs market or retraining people in the sector. What are the opportunities and provisions made for people from other completely different sectors, including older people, wishing to retrain, of which there are many post-COVID and post-furlough? Does anybody fancy having a go at that one?
Part of what we're doing is looking at the adult education marketplace, basically, and seeing how we can support employers with upskilling staff for the future and retraining. So, you know, the thing is, it's employers wanting to come to us for that. We can market it as much as we can, but then, you know, it's fitting around employers, whether it's evenings or what have you, for them to be able to, you know, run a business and support the upskilling of their staff. So that's kind of part of the drawback to really offering anything around that. We're hoping by the investment we're making, we are going to see some of that for the future. I mean, it's an interesting one, I think, in general, with the challenges for the skill shortage of the future. Certain articles mention about the baby boomer issue that's going to come around, the retirement crunch and replacing skilled people and adaptability and skills, etc. We are New College Durham. We have 800 full-time students in technology on top of apprentices, all really looking to try and get into a company to train as an apprentice or basement, which is the main way in construction engineering. Two of our main areas are plumbing and electrical installation, where we have a high volume of apprentices, but we have a high volume of young people waiting for that as well. And we just don't have sufficient employers stepping forward to take on apprenticeships. This has gone on for years. It doesn't go away, whether we change it into green energy or what. The employers will always mention about there's a lack of skilled people. What are colleges doing? Well, what are employers doing to help us as well? We really need more employers on board. Well, you know, we've got a good volume of employers we work with and that come back to us regularly because they know they get a good job done off us, and they're getting high. You know, we support the training. We've got highly qualified apprenticeship skills coordinators who go out to employers, as well as the staff we have in place here. And you've heard two of the managers on who, you know, create that ambition for employees as well. But I think, you know, it's certainly from my perspective that employers need to create more opportunity. The government need to support that. There is some incentives come out, but it just never seems to be joined up at times. So I'd like to give a great answer. We do try. And I think, you know, in further education, we get often looked at as go to college and get a job. Not quite that easy. Go to college and get trained. We deliver qualifications. We don't necessarily, you know, we're not a job market as well. We help. Our apprenticeship team help to get young people into apprenticeships, but it's very much employers. And, you know, again, we engage well with employers to support the development of our curriculum, but it's opportunities, more opportunities we need. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ian. Honestly, spot on. Yeah. Go on, Kelly, over to you.
Just to, I mean, build on that last point. I mean, we find, so we did another piece of research for BAYS. It was like an international review of domestic supply chains. We're looking at how we can transfer the lessons from France or Germany into the UK. And what we find in the RMI market, which is the repairs, maintenance and improvement. So, you know, that's everything from getting your kitchen or your bathroom. And, you know, you look at internationally and UK, particularly the UK, that you've got the workforce, you know, you've got employers, whether it's your one-man band or a small company, who are so busy with work at the moment that are outside that retrofit space. They could do it. They're so busy. They've got logbooks planned for, 6-7 months that they're not necessarily willing to release those individuals to be trained. And another reason for that is that we've had the disarray that Adrian was talking about in policy, with programs like the Green Homes Grant being slashed. Why would they, when they can get that fitter or that engineer out to, learn about air source heat pumps or the like, when actually they could be working on a job and earning money in a sector that they're not too confident about? So again, it comes back to my point on long-term policy. And what we found was in the US, they're specifying policy and programs for a decade or more as a minimum. And as you pointed out, parliamentary, 5 years. So yeah, I just wanted to add to that point that was made rather brilliantly earlier. Yeah.
Okay, look, I'm very, very aware that due to my absolutely rubbish chairmanship, we've overrun by quite a bit. I'll take full blame for that. I just want to say thank you very, very much to all of our presenters. That was absolutely fabulous. Every slide will be shared post-meeting, and I look forward to the next series, which will be about resilience, heat resilience, and it'll be mid-April. A date is yet to be agreed, so watch this space.